Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are now part of the FIT Library, FIT Authors Talk. My name is Monica Williamson. I am a member of the Periodicals and Electronic Resources Department here at FIT Library, and just want to give you a bit of backstory about what this initiative is first before I launch into the full talk. Again, welcome, everyone. When you're coming in, if you can please mute. Okay, that would be great. Thank you so much. Again, hello, and thank you for joining us today at today's FIT Authors Talk. FIT Authors Talk is part of the Love Your Library event series and is an initiative of the FIT Library that brings authors from our community to speak about their work, from photography to fashion illustration, fiction writing to art. These talks encompass a multitude of projects and themes and celebrate creativity. Today, our author is our very own Emil Wilbekin, who's been teaching at FIT so new, so young, so fresh. Energy still going since fall of 2023. Can you believe it? So you had a 1-year anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Happy anniversary.
I
So
know,
again,
me
my
and
name,
Christy.
I didn't mean to cut you off. You have anniversary well wishes?
Hmm. Oh, no, this is my second year. I'm
Second year?
excited. Second
Wow.
year. Yes.
So welcome back and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And again, my name is Monica Williamson. I work for the Periodicals and Resource Services Department. And our mission within our department is to foster education and imagination by creating opportunities for engagement with instinctive and world-renowned collections by employing strategic collection development and thoughtful user experience design. Okay, we have a lot of great magazines and resources here to foster your creativity and assist in your research. So if you have not visited our fine department, we are located in the Goodman Resource Center on the 4th floor. And we are part of the 3 floors that make up the library here at FIT. The other floors on 5 consist of access services, and the 6th floor is part of our acquisitions and metadata service department, as well as the Maker Minds lab for students, as well as printing here on campus. So if you are not familiar, please come by and give us a visit. Okay? Now, it makes sense since I work for the periodicals department to speak to someone who, I don't know, maybe has tipped a toe or two in the field of journalism. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, here at the library, we have over 300, close to 375 current subscriptions, and that does not include our digital e-journals as well and digital access. So a healthy, robust collection. And to me, I think it's only fitting that we speak to the one, the only Emil Wilbekin. So can we just clap it up right now? Hey!
I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome. When I first read that the convocation pamphlet introducing the new faculty, and I saw your name there, I
Mhm.
beamed with excitement because I was
Aw.
like, okay, I'm familiar with your name on the masthead of magazines that I've read, like Essence and Vibe and what have you. But I was so excited for your students because you're bringing real world, here and now, still penning to this day experience into the classroom, right? So
Yeah.
when you joined FIT,
Hmm.
what was your hope? What did you want to, and what do you want to impart to your students?
Well, thank you, Monica and the FIT Library for having me. I'm so excited. When I was interviewing at FIT, I was really excited because I used to live literally on 27th and 7th. So I would walk past FIT. I wish I still lived there. Be a great commute. But I love FIT. I've been to obviously all of the amazing museum exhibitions, but I remember the first week of orientation and they brought us to the library. And you and I met, and I met your colleagues, and I was so impressed by the periodical wall, right? That you had, I love magazines. And so when the position opened up at FIT and I was interviewing, I was very excited because it was journalism, right? And to be able to teach journalism um, today, right, at FIT with all these young creative students um, is important. And one of the things that I talked about in my interviewing process at the various stages was it was very important for me to uplift the craft of journalism in a fake news era, right? Um, I think it's really important. And the fact that FIT had just started a minor in journalism, I thought that was really impressive. But also to be able to teach journalism and feature writing to a new generation of young people who are raised on the internet, who are fully engaged in TikTok and Instagram and social media, and to expose them to what reporting, writing, research really looks like to create news that is journalism, right? That is real, that is well written, well researched, and authentic, right? We have so many fake news places all over X and Instagram and just everywhere, right? So that was kind of the most important thing. And then the other part, right, is that there's not many people of color in the field of journalism. So the opportunity to represent that at FIT is really humbling and wonderful, but also to perhaps inspire some young people of color to choose journalism in our brave new world.
Well, when did you fall in love with the written word?
So I fell in love with the written word as a child. People don't believe this. My nickname as a kid was Mr. Reporter. And so my parents called me that because I literally would tell everything. Like I'd tell all the business in our house, in our neighborhood, in our family. And so it was just ironic. My first job was, at like 8 or 9 years old as a paper boy. I was delivering the Cincinnati Enquirer, grew up in Cincinnati. So it's almost like there was this predestined journey to get me to journalism. What's interesting is when you ask me about falling in love with the word, I have a complicated relationship with the written word because I also had a reading disability growing up. And so my parents had to really work with me and tutor me. My reading wasn't great. My spelling was atrocious. I still thank goodness for autocorrect and spell check, but it's something I had to really work on. And I remember my parents would have me reading out loud in the car when we were driving. They constantly had me reading and reading out loud so I could hear myself reading. And I think that's kind of how I fell in love with the word. But I would say when I really fell in love with the word was when my words had meaning. And so I think it was the 8th grade, my school was asked to compete in a citywide program that was you had to write an essay about how to conserve energy. And this is a long time ago. And I wrote this essay and I won. And I think that's when I fell in love with the word, right? Because being challenged by this reading disability and this learning disability, so being very, very like insecure about my writing, my spelling, and things like that. And then to win an essay contest in my town, it was a really big deal. And I think that's when I was like, okay, there might be something there.
So thank you because I wanted you to touch on that. So, okay. I formulated a great question to glean the information that I wanted to get because it's not known, right? No one would
Mhm.
know that you
Right.
had a learning difference or a challenge growing up. You know what I mean? And it
Mhm.
still may plague
Yeah.
you or still have, seeds still to this day. But when you're
Yeah.
talking about journalism, it's nothing but the word, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and research and reading and all of the things. So, thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that and comfortable enough to share that. And how do you support students in your classroom who you may suspect or maybe identify as
Mm.
having learning challenges, and they want to pursue the word, they want to pursue journalism or
Mhm.
marketing? How are ways that you support them? What are some of the ways
Well,
you
one of the
support
ways is, first day of class, I tell them this story, right? Like the
them?
very
Okay.
unsuspecting award-winning journalist professor that's in front of you um, had a learning disability, had to overcome challenges, right? And I present that vulnerability to them, right, so that they can feel vulnerable and they can feel safe, right, in the learning. Um, and then, some of the students I get obviously notice from Fitable about certain students. I have students who English is their second language.
Mhm.
And I give them a lot of opportunities in the classroom to share who they are. And in their sharing, they kind of will let me know certain things, right? And so then that way I can really work with them. And I've had students that have really brilliant ideas and can't really articulate them well. And so then I'll send them to the writing center, right? And so they go to the writing center. And sometimes I don't even send them, I give them feedback and they go on their own. And then I see this marked improvement. I'm like, hey, what did you like? I know I'm a good professor and teacher, but your improvement was so great. Like, what happened? And they're like, oh no, I went to the writing center and they really helped walk me through. The other thing that I do with my students is that I let them do drafts of their pieces and then receive feedback and then have an opportunity to redo the piece. Because if I'm writing for Vogue or the New York Times or The Cut or Essence, I'm going to have to do a rewrite. And I think, FIT, we really talk to our students about being in the real world and giving them professional training. And that's professional training, that you have to be able to rewrite something. You have to be able to take feedback. You have to do revisions and you have to kind of humble yourself in the writing process. So I bring all of that to the classroom.
You mentioned your bio, and I was surprised how short it was. It was very concise. It was very.
Mm.
It was. I was waiting for the whole 2 or 3 pages, and I was like, what? Because you've
Hmm.
had such a breadth and depth history in this
Yes.
field. I mean, the New York Times Magazine, Vogue, The Cut, Architectural Digest, Time, Essence, Ebony, Town and Country, and plus on TV as well. Like, you're keeping it humble, sir. It's a
Well,
little humble. It's very humble.
yeah, I
Come
mean, listen, you're only as good as your last byline, as far as I'm concerned. So, um, no, I mean, listen, I have done a lot, I've won National Magazine Award when I was at Five. I've written for all these places. And a lot of people know that about me, but I don't know. Like, I am proud of my work. I'm grateful for my work, but I'm, I don't know. I don't feel the need to kind of be braggadocious about it. I think people know, right? Like I'll never forget. I'll tell you a funny story about convocation. My very first day of school last year, I was terrified. Like I'd never taught.
on.
I had done lectures. I'd done public speaking. I've done tons of mentoring, but I've never taught like 4 classes, 3 days a week, 100 students. Like I'm like, what does that look like?
Mhm.
And I'm freaked out the first day of competition. I'm like, I don't know what I'm wearing. I don't know what I'm to expect. I literally don't know what's about to happen. I'm really walking into this new chapter of my life that I've been drawn to. And that morning of convocation, I got an alert that my cover story for Essence magazine of Kiki Palmer and Sergio
Mhm.
Hudson
Mhm.
dropped that day.
Mhm.
And that was that was like a sign from the universe that I was like, okay, you're on the right path, right? Like the work that you're doing and going to continue to do um, will still happen and actually work with being a professor at FIT, right? And being able to be in the marketing communications department and to be part of, the journalism part of that department as well as public relations, but we're talking about writing right now. And it was just like a sign, like I was like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And then to be able to teach from that article for my students, I literally used my notes, my interview, my transcripts, the revisions, the notes from the editors with my students the other day in class about kind of the process of how do you build a story, a news story.
Hmm. That's real world experience, right? Current
That's
real
right.
world experience.
Yeah.
How do you, in this day and age where skim reading is the norm, right? How many people really cuddle up with a good book? You know, how do you impart I want to come from, how do you impart the importance of the long read when it's all about the fast news cycle, it's all about, you know, the quick sound bite, and
Sure.
really every and all of the stimulus around us is like quick, 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 now, now, yesterday, yesterday, I need it now.
Right.
How do you cultivate that yearning, that
Mhm.
want in the
Right.
classroom?
Well, so all of my students will tell you I am always making them read, and they have to read news articles, they have to be up on current events. I do in class reading because one of the things I found was sometimes, the students won't do their homework, and they'll skim, like you said, and
No,
I'll be
not
like,
students not doing homework. No.
I know, right? And so I will say, hey, we're going to all read this article together in class, and then we're going to have a discussion around it, right? And so what I found is when you do it that way, there becomes this community of reading, right? And if they participate in the discussion or not, I'm watching them read, like they're literally sitting there reading. I think that the one thing, and I hear a lot of professors do this. I think we give the younger generation a short shift. I think, yes, they are social media and internet babies, and they do have shorter attention spans. I also will say they have different attention spans because I think that they're doing so many things where they're multitasking that um, sometimes you need to open the door. What I've found with most of my classes, there's a lot of closeted readers who love fiction, who
Mhm.
love biographies, who wanted to be, who love creative writing, who journaled, who did all this when they were younger and maybe weren't nurtured in that way. And so they put it down. So, for instance, in my 141 journalism class, we begin the semester learning about news and journalism and how to write and report. And then they write a hard news story. The second half of the semester, we pivot into feature writing, which is a different form of journalism, which is the longer form and stuff like that. So they have to, so I tell them all the time from the beginning, in the middle, and the end, great writers are great readers, right? So the only way that your writing is going to improve is if you read. So, so I make it part of the curriculum, but I also make it part of the experience. So, I give them pieces to read, and I've called you all, bugging you all about Hemingway and all kinds of old pieces that I'm looking for because I also give them stories and that are relevant to their experience, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So having them read a Vogue cover story on Lady Gaga written by Jonathan Van Meter that's
Mhm.
probably like 3,000 words, but it's Lady Gaga, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
there's a different interest in that, right? So I try to make sure too that I'm giving them pieces that are related to the things that creativity. They're at FIT. So reading Robin Givhan, who's the Pulitzer Prize winning um, fashion critic at the Washington Post, having them read last semester a piece that she did about the 100-year anniversary of Gucci, right? That I'm quoted in.
Mhm.
So I make it relate to them, and then
Mhm.
they're interested in it.
You mentioned mentorship earlier,
Mhm.
and you have the organization Native Son, right?
Yes.
Taken from another great wordsmith and political mind, James Baldwin, Notes of
Mhm.
a Native Son. So
Yeah,
please share the history of Native Son and what is the mission, what is the purpose of the organization?
sure. So Native Son. So I was editor at large at Essence Magazine, where I oversaw the covers. Um, I started off, I'll back up a little bit and then take you into Native Son. I started as the managing editor of Essence.com to make the website more young and relevant to a younger audience of young women. Um, and then they found out, so I did maybe like two redesigns. I helped build a hair app. We created all these franchises that were really, really great. And then at one point, they found out that I had great relationships with celebrities. And so, in a reverse decision, I was moved from digital to print, where I oversaw the covers of the magazines. One of the blessings in that story is that Martha Nilsson was the first woman to be editor in chief of Time Inc. And she happened to be my magazine writing professor from Columbia Journalism School.
Oh,
So she knew about my love of journalism, my love of fashion, um, my love of celebrity. And so she kind of helped direct me to then do that. So I was there, I was at Essence for like 5 years and I loved it. It was great. Legacy brand started, you know, Susan Taylor was the Hallmark editor. She had been a fashion director that became editor in chief at Vibe. I was a fashion director that became editor in chief. And I grew up with Essence. Uh, so I'd be in these rooms at Essence, and I'd be at these events that I worked on: Black women in Hollywood, Black women in music, women running the world, all these amazing events. And I was so moved by how Black women were uplifting other Black women. And I was just like, I wish I had that for my own community.
mm,
I'm a Black gay man. I wish that in my community of Black, gay, and queer men, I had an organization, a community that would lift me up, that would lift each other up. And so I started thinking about that a lot. And as we talked about really early before the call, it's like the media industry is shrinking dramatically.
mm.
And so in this crazy one day, I'm laid off with 700 other people across Time Inc. as they separated from Time Warner. This is in 2014.
Mm.
And I got a great severance package. And I work with this woman who's a vision coach. So she helps you actualize the vision that you want in your life. And I called her and I was devastated because I was like, I've never been laid off, fired, anything. And she said, Congratulations, the universe gave you what you asked for. And I was like, Wait, what?
Wait a minute.
But she's like, Listen, you wanted to start your own thing. You loved Essence, but were ready to move on. You didn't know what you wanted to do. The universe gave you a little kick in the seat and gave you some money. Go figure it out. So I went to India for my Eat, Pray, Love journey and wanted to go somewhere where I didn't know the culture. I didn't know the language. I didn't feel comfortable. I had an ex in India who was Indian American, whose family was from there, and he's from Chicago. So he's like, come visit. So I go to visit and I go for 4 weeks. I end up staying for 6. And it was transformative. It literally was spiritual. It was beautiful. It was incredible. I could literally shed everything and become whoever I wanted, right? So I'm at this Ayurvedic retreat doing a cleanse for like 10 days by myself in the south of India and Kerala. And you had to eat vegetarian based on your dosha, so earth, wind, and fire, or air. Wi-Fi was like a mile away in this office, so you couldn't really be on your phone. You had to do yoga, meditation, and these treatments every day. And so one morning I woke up and I was sitting outside on this little terrace of my hut, and I was journaling. And I heard these fishermen pulling in their nets down below at the beach. And suddenly, literally, a voice was like, "Black gay men," and I was like, what does that mean? Like, what? I am, but like, what does that mean? And I just kept journaling.
Uh,
And I thought about the privilege that I had to be editor in chief of Vibe magazine and win a national magazine award in the most homophobic, misogynistic times of hip hop. And
uh,
I had the privilege to be out, right?
uh,
And lead this magazine. And I thought about the AIDS crisis and how many Black gay men and just gay men, period, lost their lives and weren't able to live the life I was able to live, right?
uh,
And that I stood on their shoulders. So I was like, what could I do to give back to my community? And so I kept journaling, kept journaling. So I come home from my whirlwind trip to India, and I'm so excited. And I'm like to my friends, I had this aha moment. Oh my God, like Black gay men. And they're like, you've been talking about that. And I was like, really? And they're like, you've been talking about wanting to create an organization for yourself, for your community, being in community with other Black gay men, uplifting up the community. And I had never, it was there. I guess I just wasn't focused on it. And so from that, and I'll speed it up because I'm taking a long time, I had friends who worked in media like Fred Jackson and
yeah,
Bevy
that's
Smith.
funny.
Yeah, and I gathered them, and I was like, I have all these ideas. And my friend Bevy Smith, many of you may know or not, she's a big media personality, has her own show on Sirius FM with Radio Andy, and she was like, you got to get this going because you keep talking about it, but you're not doing anything.
Uh,
And so I built out this really rough deck, and I pitched it to Cadillac and General Motors, and they said yes.
wow.
And they funded the first Native Son Awards. We honored Don Lemon, George C. Wolfe,
Uh,
and Ray McKesson, and
uh,
it was covered in the New York Times. And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I had this brilliant idea, and now it's covered in the New York Times. I have no idea what I'm doing next. Like, I literally am like, what am I doing right now? And
ooh,
I started an Instagram page. Donald Trump won president in 2016. This is 2016. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what a crazy time to start this organization. And so the next thing we did after the awards, we did a conversation around being a Black gay man living in the age of Donald Trump.
uh,
And it was wall to wall. And I had Darnell L. Moore and Richard Brookshire and all these thought leaders. And I just kept going. And so now, 8 years later,
wow.
Native Son has 80,000 followers on Instagram. We just launched a content platform with Q Digital, which is queerty into Outsports and LGBTQ Nation. Um, our awards this past summer were covered in the Hollywood Reporter. We honored Law Roach and
Uh,
Jeremy Pope and all
uh,
these amazing Bill T. Jones.
uh,
And
uh.
it's
Heavy hitters,
this
all heavy hitters.
huge, yeah, huge global movement.
Wow, and you still have time to teach or want and desire to teach. Come on now. What's your favorite
Yeah.
word? Do you have a favorite word?
Oh my God, that's such a great question. Ah, my favorite word is grace
What?
because I feel like it's a beautiful reminder to be full of grace. It's a reminder to give grace. It's a good way to move through the world. Makes me feel good about life when I think about grace.
Good one. I felt that. I felt that. Okay, I felt that. So I'm looking at the background. Your lighting is on point. You have the accent pop color, and so there's mention of your work with Architectural Digest. What was your foray? What was your entry point into architecture?
So everything points back to my childhood. My father was an architectural engineer. My parents met and married in New York, and they moved to Cincinnati. My father was commissioner of buildings and inspection for the city of Cincinnati, and my father designed, and my parents built the house I grew up in, and it was in this suburban neighborhood in Cincinnati that was mostly black, and in the middle of the neighborhood was this mahogany asymmetrical house with bay windows in the front.
Come on now.
And people were just like, what is this
What
house
is this?
in the middle of this basic neighborhood? Um, and so that's where it goes to. If you ever see my writing, I write with like architecture script, the way my father taught me how to do the all capital letters, and it's
Oh, and
very,
draftsman penmanship.
yeah, it's very draft style. Um, and so that's kind of where it started. And then my first magazine job out of grad school, I was an assistant at Metropolitan Home Magazine.
Well, okay now. Well, okay now. So, what is your favorite architectural movement or style?
Mid-century modern.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all the rage. Has it ever gone out of style since it came into style? No, I don't think so.
No, and it's classic. It's um I don't know, it suits me. Like it's my taste. It can be comfortable, it can be uncomfortable. I like the modern look at what the future would be, and it still kind of stands up as that.
Hmm.
Um,
But it
but
still
then I
has a
like the
warm,
use of
homey feel
materials.
to it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel it. I like. Okay, I see that. What do you do for fun that you can share with the public? Come on now, you can share with the public.
So, so here's the thing with my life and my interests is that I kind of have an occupational hazard, which is everything that I love to do for fun, I actually get to do for work, right? Like I have to read amazing works, I have to go to movies, be interested in fashion, go to museums and art and culture and go to cultural events. And that's what I do for work, right? And so it's tricky for me. I mean, it's hard. And honestly, sometimes I just chill in the bed and like binge watch stuff like industry I'm in the middle of right now, which is like
Heavy,
really ad
heavy,
spend,
heavy,
heavy,
heavy, messy, so
heavy.
messy.
And then I like guilty pleasures like Emily in Paris and stuff like that. But I would say if I had to think of like what do I really love to do for fun that is not directly related with work would be two things. One is having dinner with friends is the best, like conversations, laughing, joyful, just the best. And the other thing is going to church.
Favorite gospel song?
For every mountain.
Give us a little bit of it.
Oh, you don't
Just
make
so
me
we know.
sing.
'Cause
I'm
no,
here.
you use your words. Come on. Can you
Yeah.
recite
Um,
it? If you're not feeling your full voice, can
I
you
could
recite?
sing too, but we're not going to do that on here. Y'all not paying enough. No, I'm kidding. But it's for every mountain, for every valley, for every trial I put you through. It's basically that you're going to be okay.
Hmm, hmm.
And it's funny, at first, I never really was connected to the song, and I heard it at my church right after Sandy, the the hurricane, and there was all this craziness happening, and I just thought, like, I love this song. Like, whatever you go through, you're going to be okay. There's a
Hmm,
higher power that has you.
hmm. I want to give you a couple of words, a
Okay.
series of words, and if you can it could be a sentence, it could be a one-word response, it could
Okay.
be a phrase. Um, just share your thoughts about it. Learning.
More. Like I
I
want
need to
more money.
expand that. It's heavy. All right, please. In this
No, I
moment,
mean,
please
listen,
expand on that.
I'm not like I'm a professor. Okay. So it's not like I could have a corporate job making a lot more money. But I think money, especially in New York, it makes life easier. I think money is important, but I don't worship money, right? And especially watching the news lately and seeing friends and other people go down because of money and different things, like, yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Let's see. Music.
Mm, joy. I see you want to make me sing. I'm not gonna sing for you, but I would
Come on.
I'm not singing. Um, but I would
Whatever
say
moves you.
I think about the Pharrell song like joy, right? Joy, joy,
Mm,
joy, joy. It's just music to me is joy. Like, I mean, it fits any mood. If you are excited and happy, there's music. If you are feeling low, there's music. If you want to be comforted, there's music. When I write, I listen to music. I was talking to my students about that last week. Like, how do you set the tone when you write? And so for me, there's a couple of different vibes that I like, but like there's a Snow Allegra um, Pandora channel that I often put on because it's like chill, and they might have some
mm,
Sade along with young artists in
mm.
there. I like that. But yeah, joy,
Fashion.
fabulous. Like, I mean, listen, so yeah, fashion, I wanted to be a fashion designer growing up. My parents were like, you need to do something practical because my dad's West Indian from St. Croix. My mother's from Des Moines, Iowa. So they were about work ethic and practicality. Now, mind you, my mother was a fashion doyenne. She was like wearing in Cincinnati, dropping me off at school with like red ultra suede house and wrap dress, knee high boots, big Christian Dior sunglasses. I mean, in Cincinnati. And a mink coat. And I'm just like, everyone thought we were the weirdest family ever, but that's all I knew. So I just thought everybody else was weird and basic. Um, and so my love of fashion really came from my mother. And, I was getting Vogue and Bazaar and GQ when I was like 12 years old.
Mm.
Like I
Okay.
was obsessed. I was voted best dressed in high school. Like I love fashion.
Okay. Photography.
Um, I mean, I love, as you can see behind me, I love photography. I love what I love about photography is telling stories through images, right? And so fashion photography, obviously the big thing for me in my life and my time at Vibe as fashion director and doing a lot of the covers. Um, I actually have a lot of photography students take my journalism classes, which is really cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm like, okay, like that's cool. And what they all leave with a better sense of how to tell stories, right?
Mm.
Through just to be great storytellers. But I love photography. It's like one of my favorite. I probably have more photography in my apartment than I do artwork, visual artwork. I just love photography.
What's the most memorable that you can share? Most memorable photo shoot in any of the publications that you work with?
Hmm, such a great question. Most memorable, so many. Okay, for the purposes of this, which I think would be great, is I had this harebrained idea when I was style editor Vibe that I wanted to do I love Hitchcock films, like
Mm.
love. So I love old movies. Like I'm a Turner Classic Movies junkie, like it's crazy. And I just will watch the same movies over and over again. So I love Hitchcock. And so I wanted to do this homage to Hitchcock through hip hop. And it would only
Mm.
work if I could get Biggie to be Hitchcock. And so I reached out to his managers and I was like, hi, I had this crazy idea, which I was kind of known back then for crazy ideas. And they were like, we love it, let's do it. And once Biggie said yes, it was so Biggie was Hitchcock. I did Foxy Brown as the scene of the birds with like a Versace slip dress and this boat. And we did it with this Guy Rock as a photographer. So he did this green screen where he would put in whatever backgrounds we needed that were Hitchcock, like so birds flying and stuff like that. And then we shot in the studio. So it was Mary J. Blige when she was dating Case with they did Rear Window. Um, Monica and Kenny Lattimore were North by Northwest.
I love that film. Good one.
Yeah.
Good one.
So that's one of my favorite. And so we had Biggie Fell Asleep, but we had Biggie with the cigar with the bird on the end of the cigar as Hitchcock as the opening photo.
Wait, was this the same photo shoot with Biggie and Faith in the car?
No,
He had that was a
no. So
different.
that's the first cover I ever styled
Okay.
in history. So Biggie and Faith in the blue convertible, that iconic photo, literally was I. So that's when I transitioned from being an editor at Vibe to being in the fashion department at Vibe, and I kind of was like editing and styling, and we were shooting Biggie for the cover, and the fashion director was like, "I don't want to do it," and I was like, "Cause he's like, he's too big. I don't want to do it. It's going to be too crazy." And I was like, "I'll do it. I'll definitely do it." And that has
Wow.
become that iconic-ish image.
So wait, did you have experience styling, like pulling clothes? That's the thing, pulling clothes and getting designers to trust, that you get the garments. How did you finesse
Right.
that?
So that was how I ended up becoming the style editor and not the fashion director. So I
Mm,
basically used to edit. So I edited the news sections of the magazine for the launch, and then they realized I have good taste in music. So they made me the new talent editor. When I'm the new talent editor, I break artists like Aaliyah, Usher, Missy, Brandy, um, Outcast. I can keep SWV, like I can keep going, right?
right, right.
Maxwell, all
Wow.
these people. And then we just had bad fashion in the magazine, and I was just mad about it. And I love fashion. And I was like, then I'll do it. And so the editor was like, you don't have any experience with market work. You don't have a portfolio. You've never gone to shows. I mean, I probably had gone to shows, but they were like, so come up with your own job description so that you can learn all that. So I came up with the job title of style editor, where I would combine celebrity, this is before celebrity fashion, celebrity and fashion, urban sportswear with high fashion. And
Uh-huh.
um, yeah, and then that took me down the path of becoming the style editor for 2 years, and I became fashion director, and then I became editor in chief.
All right, now gotta put you on the spot right now. You have the elephant in the room. Well, the elephant that's not in the room.
No, 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 don't make
So
me do that.
FIT office talk, is usually centered around people who have published work,
Oh,
right? And
okay.
we're talking about the work.
Okay.
So what's really good with the book? What's happening? What's happening
Oh
with
my
the book?
gosh, I thought you were going to go a different direction. Okay.
Now,
Um, so thank you. So I'm working on a book. The problem is I'm a professor at FIT. I have to grade a million papers all the time. Um, and it's not just that. It's a collection of essays. The collection of essays are going to so it's almost like doing a memoir, but through the lens of collection of essays. So the collection of essays should then give you a composite of me and my life and who I am in the world. The issue is it's hard to write when it's yours and to focus on it, right? And I think that it also will come when it's supposed to come. And I definitely used my whole spring break and winter break this year to work on it. Though what I found out was that during spring break, I wrote all this stuff that was really cathartic and dark and crazy that wasn't for the book. It was just stuff I needed to get out.
Mm.
And I got that out of the way. I sent it to my editor. He was like, okay. Um, he's like, okay, like, and he wouldn't call me back. I was like, what is up? And he's like, well, this is really sensitive stuff you're writing about. So how do you want to deal with it? I was like, I love constructive criticism, so go. So he said, he basically, this blew my mind. He basically gave me notes that I would give my students.
Mm.
Literally. I was like, and it was like, I felt crazy because it was like, everything he said to me is what I would tell my students, right? Watch your use of first person, right? Um, who are you citing? Who are you referencing, right? He wanted me to use more pop culture references to tell the story and move the narrative forward. I was too first person in it, all this stuff. So over the summer, again, I have time, so I start again. So it's a start again, stop again thing. I feel
Mm.
like I'm at a place now where I know where I want to start with this first essay, which he's having me write a very specific first essay around the topic
Okay.
of platform. And so platform being whatever I want it to be. And so I had a moment at church on Sunday where my pastor, wasn't even our pastor, the guest pastor was celebrating our pastor was celebrating his 20th anniversary. We had a guest pastor, and the pastor was talking and doing this amazing sermon. And I realized I was like, imposter syndrome. That's what I
Oh,
want. That's where I want to start.
okay. That's heavy. That's heavy.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Yeah,
heavy.
that's heavy. Wow. Okay. All right. I'm supposed to leave space for questions, but I don't see any in the chat. So I'm just gonna offer another question. Favorite author and why? If you can name the author, if you
Favorite
name the piece of
author.
work and why.
Well, favorite author is easy. James Baldwin.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
I would say I go back and forth. So Native Son, the movement community and platform that I started, is named after James Baldwin's Notes of a Native Son, which is a collection of essays, which is kind of how my book editor got me into the collection of essays
Okay.
conversation. Um, and they're almost like long magazine features, right? So I love James Baldwin. I think his writing is exquisite, is the word I would use. It is beautiful. It is, you have to reread things multiple times sometimes to really process and digest them. His mind is beautiful, and I love the
Hmm.
way that he's able to articulate ideas that were presented however many years ago in the 60s, right? That are still super relevant to this day. Um, Giovanni's Room was the first
Yes.
thing that I ever read where I was like, oh, this is what it would look like about two men being in love and having a complicated romance, right? All of his work, I could just keep going. I love, love, love James Baldwin's work.
Yeah. I read Giovanni's Room, and I was in that cab. I was in that cab in Paris. You know, I
Mm.
could just his
Yeah,
use of descriptive language. I was like, I was had a sense of place.
you can
I was
see
right
it.
there with them. Yes,
You
exactly,
can see it.
exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. So WebEx is doing something very strange where people are leaving messages or questions, but it's showing up as cannot be decrypted. So I don't know what that's all about. But I want to thank all those who've had words and questions to share, but I'm unable to see them. So I'm unable to ask them, which is
Oh,
awful.
there's only, I see one. So it's Haley from my intro to journalism class. Hey, Haley.
Okay. Hi, Haley. Thank you
And
for that. Okay.
it says, what is your favorite book? Or do you know any books that can give tips on writing? Oh, that's an interesting
Oh, let's go with
question.
it.
That's a great question. Hmm. Well, so favorite books, I would go back to Notes of a Native Son and Giovanni's Room. In terms of tips on writing, that I feel a little stumped by, and I'm going to get back to you in Brightspace with references on that. And you know what? You get extra credit because you just stumped your professor. Fab. Okay. Camilla, thank you. Camilla Tibbetts, who's in AMC, thank you for this conversation. Many times people refer to journalistic objectivity. How does this generation of students respond to objectivity? So I think that's a great point, Camilla. And I think that and the inverted pyramid are probably two of the most wow moments for the journalism students who aren't already aware of journalism is this idea that you have to tell both sides of the story. You have to be objective as a journalist. And, for some of them, they've grown up in this world where it's like everything is me, I. And suddenly you have to kind of pull yourself back. And it was interesting around the protests last semester and some of my students and the encampments, and they wanted to write about that, which I was fine. But I said, but you also need to tell the other side of the story. Like you can tell the story, but there's two sides to the story. So that's kind of how I deal with it. And it's always very illuminating. And then the inverted pyramid, you know what that is. But to answer the question directly, they're open to it. It's like teaching them something they didn't know. What is your favorite assignment to give your students at the beginning of the semester? That's from Matthew M. My favorite assignment is brand new this year because, last year I was trying to figure everything out. I asked my students the first day of class to turn in for the next week, and typically we had like Labor Day and stuff in the middle. I do this whole introduction of who I am. I asked them to write a bio of themselves.
Huh.
And it's short, like 300 words. It is the best thing I could have ever come up with. First of all, and I'm looking at Christy, it is me struggling with the students' names. It helps me learn their names, but it also helps me learn who they are as human beings, right? What their interest is, what their fears, their hopes, their dreams, and then I can guide them better in class. So that is my favorite assignment that I give my students in the beginning of the semester. Christy, it is interesting to learn about how much harder it is to write about yourself instead of writing about others. What advice would you give your students to overcome this issue? So I find it the other way with my students. I think it's easy for them to write about themselves, and all the stories they pitch are like they want to interview their family, they want to talk about themselves, and I'm like, nope. So because they grew up on Instagram and TikTok, like they're used to everything being first person. The hardest struggle that I have is getting them to write in third person. It is really, really challenging. Once they break through that wall, they're good. But getting them there, like so many emails, like, so you sure I can't write about myself? And I'm like, 100%. This is not a personal essay writing class. That is 400 level writing class, which you are not in.
Look at you. Come on. Thank you for doing the work because I'm unable to see these questions. So please, yes. Away we go.
What magazine is most impactful in your opinion right now? Such a great question. I would say I'm really big on the Atlantic right now. They are doing some really great work. I'm a bit partial because a young woman that I met when I worked at Essence has become a features editor there. And I met her. She had just literally moved from Kentucky with 2 suitcases. She got an internship at Time Inc. I hired her to work on Essence.com to cover news because she loved news. Last year, and I now use this piece to teach in my class, she had a cover story of the Atlantic, and it was called Janisha from Kentucky. And it's all about this young woman, the woman I mentored, who grew up in a crack house. And it is a lot. But aside from that, like they just had their festival this past week. They're doing a lot of real-time critical writing about politics from both sides, and they are just doing a lot, like they're questioning a lot of things. So that's one. The other one, and I know you asked for one, but I'm giving two, would be because I have the mic, doing the Cut. The Cut magazine, I
Hmm.
think they are doing some really amazing writing from young women's perspective, um, around race, identity. Again, kind of partial because Lindsay Peoples is the editor, someone who used to write for me when I was at Essence.com. She was the youngest editor in chief at Condé Nast when she was at Teen Vogue. Um, she's a really ferocious editor and journalist, and I appreciate that.
Well, let me just offer
Um,
that. We have that very first issue of the Cut here at the library.
oh
So if
wow,
people come through and check it out, well, not check it
amazing,
out, they can view while we're open and have 2 hours to do so. But we have it here. So, boom.
amazing,
Okay.
amazing. Um, Isabella, as a senior at FIT, what advice can you give about experiences after graduation, especially in the fashion industry? How do you feel as a graduate? How do you feel as a graduate at the time? Oh, hmm. So it's such a different day and age from when I graduated. I mean, I think the advice I would give is the wonderful thing about working at FIT, right, is that there's so many working professionals at FIT. So I think really creating the mentorship relationship with your professors, but also like we have really great speakers and people come in. Like I know I bring in all these magazine editors and writers and things to my class and like trying to make a connection with them. I think, everyone's hustling for internships. It's really hard in media. Um, I think you have to start laying the groundwork early in your educational career, specifically at an FIT, and nurture those relationships, because it really helps. One of the things I just want to throw in is that one of the reasons I became a professor is because my cultural affairs reporting professor at Columbia J School was Samuel G. Friedman. Samuel G. Friedman is a New York Times bestselling author. He used to cover art and culture and religion for the Times, still does op-ed pieces and stuff. But he was the one that was like, where are these parties that you're going out to all the time? Like you're here, but you've definitely been out all night. And I was like, I'm going to hip hop parties. And he was the one that really encouraged me to write about hip hop. He's like, write about it. And so, um, making those connections with your professors and the people that they bring in and getting guidance, right, and mentorship from them, I think is super important. It's a tough job market out there right now. It's really hard for people to find work. So I think as much work as you can do while you're at FIT and the clubs and the different periodicals and magazines and platforms that are available, the more experience you'll meet more people, you'll get to know more people, and that's how it works in the real world. It's all networking.
Do you have any more questions showing up in the chat? Because again, I'm unable to. I'm sorry to put you to work, Cass.
No, that's fine. Listen, that's what we do. That I think that's all the questions that I see.
So I have two other words for you. And you
Okay.
touched on it, but just want to hear it again as we get ready to close out. Journalism.
Journalism, um, storytelling, truth, advocacy, um, urgency, democracy, liberation,
Hmm.
protecting people and their rights, right? Giving people a voice.
FIT.
FIT, the most beautiful sanctuary in the middle of New York City that is a bastion of creativity, of professionalism, and the future.
I think that's a great way to end this author talk. Thank you, everyone, for attending FIT Office Talk with Emil Wilbekin. My name is Monica Williamson. I work for the periodicals and Resource Services Department here. Thank you everyone for joining us. This was great. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Monica.
much.
Thank you to the librarian, Jenny.
Yes. All right, bring your class through. We're here. We're here. Come get the cut and all the other things that
We're
we have.
coming. We're coming.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. We appreciate your attendance. Okay. See you around.
Thank